Oh, that's a great start. Hello, everybody. Carol Garrison with Carol's Creative Escape. And it is time for another Make It Monday. Oh, and good hair and everything today. Wow, it's a Monday. Hey, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me. I apologize. I am running a few minutes late tonight. It's been a bit of a whirlwind at my house, and I'm running a bit behind, but I'm here, and that's what counts right now. So I do appreciate everybody that's taken time out of their schedule to join me. I hope that you had a good 4th of July if you were able to be off for it. I know here in Minnesota, a lot of our fireworks shows ended up getting delayed, primarily because of the weather. They were predicting rain and storms and things like that. So they either went on the 3rd or got delayed till the 5th. We've had just an incredible busy time. I was lucky enough to have a high school friend with me the week before she left, transitioned to have one of my kids move home. She came over a little bit early with her cats so we could start getting cats acquainted. We've now got 4 cats in the house temporarily that are not getting along super well. We're having some side effects from that and working through it, but hopefully in a couple more days we will be where we need to be with the cats. And then Friday, my second grandchild, a little grandson, was born. So I spent the day, Friday and Saturday, down at their house while they were at the hospital. I got to spend time with my granddaughter. So we had a great time, got to visit and see my grandson right away. So that was very, very exciting. While I was doing that, my daughter was moving home with help from my husband. So we've been kind of working on getting our stuff situated. It's a temporary thing. So we're just making do until situation changes just a little bit here. And then let's see, Sunday I got to visit with another relative. So like I said, it's just been a little bit crazy, which has kind of prevented me from being quite as prepared tonight as I would like to be. But I do have a really cool card, actually 5 card layout that I want to show you. And it's a 6x6 one sheet wonder as well. So if ever you need to make a lot of cards and you're not quite sure how to do it, check out the one sheet wonders. They come out in either 12x12 layouts or 6x6 layouts. The particular layout that I'm using is a 6x6 layout, and I am going to put measurements in as a comment after the fact on the video, because I think it's going to be too hard to share all the measurements and make it make sense. So I'll create a quick diagram and spell those pieces out for you. But it's a great way to make multiple cards, a great way to use our 2-sided paper and have one sheet accent it, you know, that type of thing. So without further ado, let me flip the camera over here. And again, I do apologize for the ceiling or my hand or wobbles or anything else that may come about. All right. My phone kind of, okay. I think we're where we need to be. And look at that. It's not, we're going to leave it because it's looking good right now. So, hi Mary Ellen, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. Sorry if I'm a little out of sorts, but we're making it work. All right. So the layout that I'm showing you is actually a layout that I got from somebody by the name of Patricia Dominici. Not sure if I'm pronouncing her last name right. But these can be found all over Pinterest, and that's where I happened to find it. And I am using today the designer series paper called Mediterranean Blooms. It's the one with oranges and lemons, but I'm focusing on the yellow and the Night of Navy colors tonight as I'm working on my cards. And I just want to show you the layout. This was made using one 6x6 piece of paper. Now I did cheat a little bit and actually had 2 6x6 pieces of paper because I knew I wanted to alternate these patterns, and the front and backs weren't where I needed them to be. But what I did was made this set of cards using kind of the B side as the focus, which is that blue side. And when I demonstrate for you today, I'm going to be using this as my focal point. So you can kind of see the difference that can make. So these are just the 5 different layouts that I'm going to share with you. Typically when you do these one sheet wonders, they aren't going to be huge super fancy layouts, but they're going to be cards that you can maximize your paper with. And sometimes it's good to have simpler cards. So let me get started with these cards. I'm using, like I said, the paper Mediterranean blooms, and I'm using the A side for the cards I'm using tonight. That way, with 2 6x6 pieces of paper, I was able to get a total of 10 cards made. This set, and then the set that we're going to go here. And I will post the layout for that 6x6. Probably not till tomorrow, but I will get it posted for you. Promise you that. So let us start. I'm just going to go the order of my cards that I have piled up. And so it looks like this first card is going to be this one. Now, I can tell you that these squares are, I want to say, the blue designer paper 1 1/8 by 1 1/8, which would make the lemon lolly paper in the background 1 1/4. And then this is Night of Navy. This piece was 1/2 inch by, I think it's 4 1/8. You know what? I don't even want to get into measurements because I don't want to mess people up. Let me list them. That's going to be the best thing to do. All of these card bases are 5 1/2 by 8 1/2 pieces of Night of Navy cardstock. And I did have my bone folder handy, and I know that it did fall on the floor. I also know that I picked it up, and as you can probably tell by now, I have no idea where it ended up. Not a big deal, because I have a second bone folder, and I am pulling it out right now. All right, so I'm going to adhere that, or burnish that, so I've got a good tight crease. And then let's go ahead and add our cardstock. All right, and then we're going to take this piece, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp my flowers. I just, actually, true confession, I did not do a very good job of putting stamp sets away lately. And so I just took the stamp sets that were sitting on my work surface, and those are the ones that we're using tonight. So one of them is the Wildflower Design, and that is just a few different floral images, some sentiments, a little background stamp, and we will be stamping this in Night of Navy ink. And I'm going to kind of guess where my flowers are going because I don't have them on here first, but we'll kind of go like this. And I'm going to go like that. And I have a cat coming to visit me. This is one of my visitors, and her name is Knox. She's kind of a long-haired tabby, but she's fluffy. So almost fluffy like a Maine Coon, but she is not. She's just a long-haired cat. So far, she's chosen to stay in the basement. We've had to rearrange some of my craft supplies because she does like to get into some things. So we have done that. And now, Miss Knox, we're going to get down on the floor because I'm not going to have you knock my camera over. There you go. We'll see if we can keep her off the work surface. I am going to grab my silicone mat because I am doing some adhesive that's going to go right to the edge. And I noticed my cutting on some of these was off just a little bit. So I ended up doing just some trimming. I'm not quite sure what happened, but when you start dealing in 1/8 of inches, it becomes, being off by just a little bit can show up more. And so I am going to trim off. All right, Knox, you're gonna come back, huh? Here we go. Yep. Oh, I didn't cut that very straight. Let me try that again. All right, that is better. So we're just adding a little narrow strip, and then we've got our 3 squares that we're going to be adding adhesive to. And I really didn't take time to embellish or do anything fancy in terms of adding jewels or rhinestones. You certainly would be able to do something like that with your cards. And mostly the reason I haven't yet is I just ran out of time trying to get it done right after work and before we were going live here tonight. That's my only reason why I didn't. But the nice thing about making cards, especially adding embellishments, you know, we can do that at any point in the process, right up to the point that you put the card in an envelope and mail it off to someone. So you can change things if you decide they look a little plain. I did pop these 3 squares up on dimensionals, and I just used one on each of these squares because they're not that big. And the only thing I'd caution you is to make sure that you've got stuff going the right direction before you adhere it. And I'm going to kind of lightly set these down until I'm sure I've got them placed and spaced evenly here. And I think that is actually pretty good. I liked having these up on dimensionals because I think it just gave a little bit of volume. I don't like that one. I'm gonna adjust it just a little bit. It just gave a little bit of volume to the card. And then I did already, using the embossing dies for the, what are these called? Deckled edges. These are still available if you go online to the online exclusives. The deckled edge rectangles are still available. And so that is the die that I used to cut out the sentiment, which just says, "May all your wishes come true." I thought that kind of looked like dandelion heads in a way. And so I thought this sentiment would be good. And I've popped it up on dimensionals because it is going to hit that square, and I just wanted to make sure that it would be even. And we're putting that right in the middle. I did think about possibly coloring these with a lemon lolly. Need to make sure that that ink is super dry because it will run, since it's alcohol on the, or excuse me, water, nope, alcohol water. So it would work, but it might smear just a little bit. When you're using blend pens, those are always going to be alcohol based, so you always want to use a non-alcohol based ink. And I again worked to keep these simple so that they'd be easy to produce. But if you wanted to add color, you could do that very easily just by coloring in those flowers once your ink had a chance to dry. So there are those 2 cards. Pretty easy. The next one I have up is actually the next one in my stack here too. So that worked out pretty well. Get rid of the dimensionals and I'll get rid of this. And this card is going to actually go in landscape mode as opposed to the portrait style. And I did have a piece of garden green. I'm using this awesome leaf stamp, or leaf punch. And I'm just going to cut 2 leaves out of garden green. And I don't need those flowers, but we'll hang on to them because you never know. We'll set that aside. We're going to adhere this inside piece with adhesive. And then we will decorate the front of our card, and keep in mind it's going to go in this direction. So we're going to create these 2 layers. In the original Pinterest post where I got this idea, they did use all the same color for the cardstock that's backing these layers of paper, and you could certainly have done that. I chose to use the Lemon Lolly kind of as a little accent color and hopefully make the Night of Navy pieces here stand out just a little bit more from the basic white. But you could certainly do these all in the same background. That would not be an issue at all. I'm going to grab a scrap piece of basic white cardstock from somewhere. There we go. And let me punch out a label for this card. I love this this punch because it's such a basic shape, and I meant to have the name of the punch ready for you, and I do not. I want to say it's the Everyday oh no, it's the Modern Oval Punch, and it can be found on page 17 in the annual catalog right here. So it just does this nice oval that fits a lot of our different sentiments. In this particular one, I am using the happy birthday sentiment that's in the Unbounded Love. You will see me using these stamps a lot just because of the variety of the greetings. But let me get this onto the block. And again, when I'm stamping, I do not put my stamps onto the block straight. The reason for that is I find it easier to make sure I've got the stamp straight on my paper that I'm stamping on, as opposed to my block, because then I try to focus on the block and making sure that is straight, and when I do that, I oftentimes will end up with wonky sentiments. Now normally I would be stamping this on a surface, a foam surface, because it is a photopolymer stamp, but I want to make sure too that I can see where I'm putting it, and it helps me to do that on this surface. So I just press down a little bit harder than I normally would to get my sentiment. It is always better when you're using your photopolymer stamps to be stamping on like one of the piercing mats or something like that, because that replaces or serves as the cushion that typically exists on our, let me grab a, on the cling mount stamps. So that cushion helps with the image, if you can see that on here. And so by stamping onto a piece of foam, you're also getting that cush that isn't always present with the photopolymer stamps. So I've got my two, I had my 2 sets of leaves. I've already misplaced one. You guys, I'm going crazy. We're just going to punch another one rather than take time to look for it. It'll pop up and I'll use it on another card. I try to save my little images like that because I can always use them on another card. So for this one, let's go ahead and adhere our 2 pieces of cardstock. I am not putting these up on dimensionals. I'm just using my adhesive to add that, and just looking to make sure I've kind of got an even border. And I just realized I'm using my adhesive that I normally use when I'm taking pictures, because it is a less sticky adhesive and is meant for moving stuff around a little bit. So let me get the good stuff out. And then for this, I did go ahead and pop up my sentiment onto dimensionals. And I did that just because I felt like I needed to have a little bit of volume again in my card. So we'll go ahead and pop those off. And it seems like I should put my leaves on first. This is the card we're recreating here, but I actually found it easier to put this on where I wanted it. And then I'm taking my Tombow liquid glue and I am just going to add glue, little dots to the big leaves. And then I will put one little dot down on the stem. That's going to be tucked under my label, so I'm really not as concerned about that. And we're going to just slip this in and adhere it. And then I'll repeat that process with this one. And I'll flip that over and tuck it under, hopefully till it fits on my card. I got just a little bit of glue there, but that's all right. And now we've got that attached. And so we'll add this to the front of our card. And look at that, there's my missing leaf. And so, what you can do when you misplace things like that and they show up again, use them on the inside of your card. No one's going to know, except those watching this video, and that's okay. And voila, we've got a little decoration on the inside of the card. All right, so there is card number 2. Now let's create this card, which is card number 3. And that is using these supplies. And so again, we'll take our bone folder and burnish the edges. That just gives us a nice crisp fold. We'll take our adhesive and we're going to put that on the inside of our card. And then we've just got a small sentiment that we're going to be adding, and that comes from this stamp set, and it's Feel Better Soon. I have to find Happy Birthday. I'm not sure where that went. Feel Better Soon. And one other trick I'll show you with the photopolymer stamps. Oh, here comes Knox again. Come here, kitty. I know. Please don't knock everything over. Is I like to just set them on my work surface and then put the black on them. That helps make sure that the stamp doesn't curve a little bit or anything like that. Typically, if you watch my videos, you'll know that I like to do my stamping first and let that dry. But because of this particular layout, I am not going to do that. I want to stamp after I have my layers attached. And that is simply because placement will be determined by where these papers actually line up. All right. And again, the 5 cards that I'm making for you are all made from a single 6x6 piece of designer series paper. I am going to add a little bit of ribbon. This is the frayed gross grain ribbon. It's basic white. It's roughly 3/8 of an inch wide. It is one of those that will fray real easily if you want a fringe. It's easy to do that. I am cutting mine at an angle because I decided I didn't really want the fray. And in fact, these pieces are going to be wrapped around here, so the ends aren't even going to show. But I do trim it at an angle because it helps a little, in my mind, it helps with the kind of limit the fraying. Don't know if that's true or not, but in my mind, that's what I think. And then I am putting some adhesive on either end of my paper here. And the reason for that is when I put this ribbon on, I want to be able to just wrap it around the edge and around the edge. I'll trim this off so that I have more surface for putting adhesive on to adhere it. And that's just a quick way to save a little bit of ribbon. It's going to stay and not move anywhere because I've got that adhesive. I'll run my adhesive down the middle. I always run some across the top of the ribbon as well, just to hold it in place. And then I'm going to line this up, again, looking for even spacing, top, bottom, side. Eyeballing it, so it is not going to be a perfect thing, but it will work. And then I am going to add dimensionals to the back of this piece. Because of the size, I do put one in the middle, and that's dimensional that I took the paper backing off of a little bit too early. So it is already peeled off. I'm curious, when you use dimensionals, would you say you use a lot of dimensionals when you put them on the back of your paper? Not very many at all, or somewhere in between? Curious what you might think. All right. That looks like it might be just a teeny bit crooked, so I'm going to see if I can lift things up just a bit and twist it. And I think I can. And so now I'm just going to take my Night of Navy ink and I'm going to stamp this right here. Feel Better Soon. And we will attach this one to the front of the card. So again, this layout is very versatile. You can use whatever sentiments you want to use on it. You could create a whole variety pack and make a gift box for somebody. You could make them all the same sentiment. It really just depends on where your need is or your mood is lying when you go to make these cards. So there's our third card. The next card that we're going to make, we'll be using these pieces, and I'm pausing because I need to find that card. So that is this card right here. Now when I put this on, I put that ribbon in the center, and I'm kind of like, I think I am okay with it, but not thrilled. So when I do this card, I'm going to place it a little bit lower on these pieces, and we'll go like that. And then I am going to pre-stamp this. You'll notice on this one I did get a little bit of an edge. Probably when we're done with the video here, I'm going to peel this off and replace that because it'll bug me. But you know what? It happens. All right, so then on this one, I'm going to use A Million Thanks. Maybe I'll make this one an anniversary card. Happy anniversary. Well, we'll see if that sentiment fits. Yep. So I'll do a happy anniversary with this card. And I've got my long block here. And this one, I do want to get my scrap paper for stamping on because I am going to be stamping off the edges and I want to protect my work surface. Not because I can't clean my work surface, but because I'm more likely to transfer ink to my project, and that's what I want to avoid. So we're just going to put this in at the bottom, center it as best we can, and put it on. And that actually isn't too bad. I was going to say I thought it might be just a teeny bit crooked. Not enough that I'm going to worry about it. I found the missing happy birthday stamp, so that's good. And we'll go ahead and get these cleaned off. I really do try to clean my stamps as I go. It just prevents me from setting a card or half-finished project down on top of one of them, thereby getting ink onto the surface I'm working with. And this card is pretty simple. The only other piece we need to do is take a chunk of this frayed ribbon, and I want to make sure that I have enough to tie a knot. And so sometimes I find it's actually easier to tie sometimes before I cut it. This time I'm having some issues with that, so I'm just going to cut a length. And we'll tie that knot, get it tight so that the ribbon lays pretty flat. I'll cut off the angles. And then this piece I am also going to put up on dimensionals. And because it is a bigger piece, I do like to just put a dimensional right in the middle. It provides a little bit of support, so it doesn't sag in the middle. And we'll put this right here. Put adhesive on the back. And again, we've got card number 4 completed. And at least with this pattern, I do like the ribbon down a little bit lower. It doesn't break that pattern up nearly as much. Looks like I forgot to fold this and burnish it, so we're going to do that real quick. And there we have card number 4 done. It's kind of fun to do it in the opposite patterns and colors just to see the difference that it makes. So we'll set that card aside and we're on to the last card. So let's start first with burnishing because it's always easier to do that before anything is attached. We're going to attach our inside piece. And I like to look at opposite corners because if it's even around these 2 corners, it should be even around those 2 corners. And for this card, it is going to look like this. It's going to require a little bit of stamping and a little bit of punching. We're going to start by punching a couple yellow flowers using this stamp. This is Lemon Lolly is the paper color. And I'm going with 3 in the Lemon Lolly color, and then we'll go 2 in the Night of Navy. You could do more if you wanted to. That's just what I'm choosing to do. Okay. Oh, got something sticky on my finger. All right. If you guys could see my workspace off camera, you would laugh at the mess I've got here. For this one, I am going to be using the sentiment of, it's not in this set. It is in the Wildflower Designs, Sending Happy Thoughts. And my Night of Navy ink, which is right in front of me. I think that's going uphill just a teeny bit on the one end. We'll see if we can improve that using the back side of the paper. And I think that's a little bit better. We'll close our Night of Navy, and I'm going to grab my Garden Green ink and my cleaning chamois. And they do recommend, whenever you're using our cling stamps, it's probably a good idea to not leave those sitting on blocks overnight. That adhesive is really strong, and it's just easier to get off if you take it off when you're done with it. And I'm also going to show you, you can tell I've got 2 stamps here that aren't sticking really well. I've used them a lot. You can tell by the staining. There's not a lot of the stickiness left on the back. If you've ever had that happen, just run it under water or wipe that backside against your chamois, just something to kind of clean. They can get a little, pick up oils from our hands and stuff like that. But if you just clean off the backside, you're going to find that it will stick as good as new just by cleaning off the backside of your stamp. So there's your little tip for the day. I find myself just doing that whenever things get a little slippery and not sticking to my cases particularly. So I'm going to just take this stamp. This is out of the Layering Leaves. This is a stamp set that was designed by Rachel Tessman, who's actually one of my sister demonstrators under Susan Canfield. So it's kind of fun to not only have her stamp set, but say, I know her. And it does coordinate then with this punch. If you've watched any of Rachel's work, you'll know that this is one of her favorite punches. So when she had an opportunity to create a stamp set, she specifically wanted one that would coordinate with this punch, and I think she was successful. She's got the flowers as well as the leaves that'll work with that punch. So anyhow, I am going to take out, whoops, my hello is not sticking very well. I already took out this leaf, putting it on here diagonally. I am using Garden Green as a stamp color, ink color underneath. And this is a dark color, so I do not want to go right onto my paper with it. Instead, I'm going to do a little bit of generational stamping. We're just using a second generation. Again, I'm going to ink off a little bit, and we'll put it right there. And then I can put my little flowers on top of that. And I noticed I picked up the edge of my black, and I managed to not get it onto my paper. I call that a win. I hate when that happens and you don't see it and you just start stamping, and all of a sudden you start picking up funky lines because you got a little bit of ink somewhere on your black or the edge of the stamp that you didn't notice. It's easy enough to clean up when you know it's there. All right, so let's get this card assembled. We'll let that ink dry a little bit. So we've got 2 more pieces of our designer series paper. We're going to bold move on my part without having my silicone mat underneath with the sticky adhesive. We'll put that kind of right here so that we've got even distribution. And I am going to snip off just a titch from the end because it is a hair too long. That's all right. And we'll add this piece. Sometimes I can see a lot better directly on my work surface. This one's got really narrow borders, but I am going to take there, a little bit off the base. Not going to do too much because if I start messing with it, I'm going to regret it. And I did put both of these pieces up on dimensionals. Now, if you've ever watched my videos before, you know I like to use every bit of my dimensionals. And for this one skinny piece, these will work perfectly for that. And I don't even mind using chunks like this. What I'll usually do when it gets empty is I'll just kind of make little cuts so that these are ready to use going forward. Put one of those in the middle, and I'll take another one of these chunks for the end, and we're good to go. So the first thing I want to put on is this larger piece. And this one, I want it even in the corner here and the edges, making sure that it's above the sentiment I've stamped on the bottom here. And then I'm going to line this piece up right next to it with just a little gap in between, kind of to mimic the border that I've already got going here. And so I'll start by putting it here and getting that border right at the top, and then we'll put it down here. And now we've got that. Probably I would have dropped that sentiment down just a little bit, but it's fine, it'll work. And then for these pieces, again, I'm going to pull out my liquid glue and just put some dots. Oops. On the flowers. And then I usually just dip the tip into one of the dots that I've made, and that helps me get just enough on the tip of my glue bottle that I can run it along the seam and have adhesive on that. And again, if I were being smart, I'd be doing this on top of my silicone mat, just in case I go off the side here, but apparently I'm not being very smart tonight because I've had to say that a couple times to myself and I don't seem to be getting the message. Oh well. One can still create artwork when their brain isn't fully working. Whoops. All right, if I can get these off my fingers. I feel like I've got more glue on me than anywhere else. All right. Yep, we're just making a total mess here. That's fine. The world isn't going to end. I didn't really have any order as to how I was placing these on my card, so they aren't necessarily going to match my first card that I made. But again, that's one of the nice things about making cards. You don't have to duplicate exactly. You can go with what works, or sometimes what your opportunities that present themselves because of silly mistakes you may have made along the way. So we're just going to put that one right there. So that gives us a little bit of kind of a leaf-like look in the background with flowers on top and that really pretty designer series paper. And now all we need to do is add our adhesive to the back, and we can put this on the front of the card. And there you have it. You've got your 5th card made. I haven't honestly been tracking the time here. It looks like this video is taking me a lot longer than normal. So I do appreciate it if you've stuck around to watch the whole thing here. But here are the 2 cards with that coloring, the 2 cards with this coloring, the 2 cards with that setup, 2 more like this, and last but not least this. So 10 cards made with 2 6x6 pieces of designer series paper. Of course, they all used cardstock. That's not included with that. I will post a template that you can use to recreate these cuttings. If you make these cards, I'd love to see what designer series paper you use for your cards. So feel free to share that down in the comments. And again, I thank you for sticking around for this longer than normal video. I appreciate your time, and we will see you next week. Take care, everybody, and have a great week.